It's been a whirlwind of a weekend for the San Francisco 49ers. Williams back, McCaffrey back, Aiyuk back, Ricky Pearsall shot. I mean, unbelievable times there. And we are making our predictions for 2024. Who's winning divisions? Who's winning the Super Bowl? 59, Super Bowl 59 predictions. Coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love our everydayers and appreciate all the new listeners as well. If you're just joining us, stay tuned in here every day, all season long on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you hit subscribe on YouTube, wherever you are listening to this podcast. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. And it is game time because it's game week 1 now. We are into the season. We'll be making our predictions today. And we've got our 6-pack of picks that we're going to be doing on Thursdays. We're going to be breaking down football games very soon here on the Friday show, making the rest of our picks for the weekend. And then, of course, coming back again on Monday and breaking down everything we saw from the weekend. So we are here. It is now week 1 of the 2024 season. And the 49ers, Matt, just getting things in order in time for week 1. And the big news on Tuesday morning is Trent Williams flew in late night to finish up his contract details, and his holdout is now over. So their opponent in week 1, by the way, New York Jets, Hassan Reddick, the last remaining holdout in the NFL right now. And so the guy who would be blocking Hassan Reddick if he is back, Trent Williams, is now in-house for the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey had been out with a calf injury. I know that was precautionary, and I knew he'd be ready for week 1. So he comes back to practice as they get ready for their practice week for week 1. We haven't even recorded a podcast, Matt, since Brandon Aiyuk ended his hold in and signed a 4-year, $120 million contract there. And if that wasn't enough over the weekend, 49ers first-round rookie wide receiver, Ricky Pearsall, was shot in the chest. I mean, just unbelievable whirlwind of activity for the San Francisco 49ers here as we get prepared for week 1. So which one of those do you want to get into first? Because I think we could put it succinctly enough for all those. Clearly, some disappointment in Pittsburgh that Brandon Aiyuk is not going to be there, right?
Yeah. So first off, I hope everyone had a wonderful long Labor Day weekend, but now we are thrust right in the heart of football season. I mean, it's coming fast and furious. I feel like I'm behind. I'm trying to preview games, trying to figure out who's playing who, matchups, that kind of stuff. So this week always hits me like a ton of bricks. I think first you got to start with, unfortunately, the guy that got shot. I mean, like, how horrible is that? And it sounds like it could have been so much worse, but I mean, obviously that's a big deal.
I mean, huge deal. And luckily for everybody involved, Ricky Pearsall was not seriously injured, not critically injured. He was in critical and in serious condition, then was upgraded to fair condition, and within 24 hours was released from the hospital. Yeah, which is insane to me. Like, he got shot in the chest, and luckily he didn't hit any vital organs. The bullet entered his chest and exited somewhere behind him through his back. And he was released from the hospital in 24 hours. I mean, you can't ask for a better possible outcome from getting shot in the chest than Ricky Pearsall. And so he's put on the NFI list. He's going to be out for at least 4 weeks. He already had a shoulder injury, so the start of his season was a little bit in doubt anyway. So Ricky Pearsall, for the short term, is going to be on the shelf. We'll see how that recovery goes and when he'll be able to be back. At least a month, Ricky Pearsall is going to be out to start his rookie season. But the fact that he's alive is the big story there. And so really lucky and thankful that that story is going to end well. And hopefully it doesn't deter more than a month of his football career.
100%. And while this is a good story in the end, because it could have been a tragic, awful story, I just know that it takes. He hasn't practiced hardly. I'm just talking football here. I'd be surprised if he really contributes till maybe mid-season or so. It's going to take some time to get on the moving train.
As far as like fantasy perspective, like Ricky Pearsall's, not someone you're probably going to want to roster right now. Maybe you stash him on IR, see what happens if there's some injuries. If there's no injuries, the 49ers still have all their returning top 3 wide receivers. Yeah. Plus you got Christian McCaffrey, who's a ball hog, and not to mention George Kittle at tight end. So unless the 49ers turn up the volume in their passing game and add 50 targets somewhere, and even that wouldn't be enough to really have a huge season. He's got Ray McCloud's leftover touches, which was 15 balls last year. That's all that's left over for the wide receiver group from Aiyuk, Debo, Juwan Jennings, and the number 4 guy was Ray McCloud. And I don't think that Ricky Pearsall would, even if healthy, would be ahead of any of those other 3 guys to start his season. So yeah, it's going to be a more of a redshirt year, it looks like, for Ricky Pearsall. And right now they're just focused on getting him healthy and getting him right. So I don't even know when he's going to be back on the field, but thankfully it doesn't look like an injury that is going to derail his career beyond, a slow start to his rookie season, which he was clearly going to have anyway. And by the way, 4th round rookie Jacob Cowing is probably the guy that's going to be in uniform over Pearsall anyway when he is healthy, because he's going to be the number 1 punt returner, it looks like, as well. So so that's that with the 49ers and their pass catching group, and Brandon Aiyuk is back, and it was a crazy saga, and in the end they finally were able to get a deal done that has him for 4 more years beyond this year. So 5 total, including this year. And they kind of wrapped up his 5th-year option year in 2024 with his long-term contract. So he actually, keeps his cap numbers down throughout the rest of his contract through 2028. And then Trent Williams is back, and we don't know what the numbers are going to be on his new deal, but he's going to be back at practice this week. It's the big worry for me, though. And I think that Aiyuk, and especially Trent Williams, I don't know how easy it is to get in midseason shape when you start practicing on Tuesday or Wednesday for a game that's on Monday, Matt, because last year Nick Bosa signed at the same time, like first day of practice week of week 1, and he said it affected him into the season, and that's for a player who can rotate in and out. You don't rotate offensive tackles in and out of the game.
Yeah, and he's not young, and he's not light. There's a big body.
Bosa was too.
Right. So I guess there's some concern there, but 80% of Trent Williams is probably better than 80% of the left tackles out there anyways, so, and I do think that's an O-line thing across the board, is none of them have played a full game yet. I mean, even if they were involved in the preseason, maybe they played a half, and no one's done that, and you can't rotate out of there. Last thing on Aiyuk, though, is I absolutely bit on he's coming to Pittsburgh. He's getting traded probably 5 or 6 times. I mean, too many good people that I know were in on that. And I do think it was really, really close. But I said in the beginning, you said in the beginning, the most logical move is to sign him, win the Super Bowl, probably move on from Debo after the year. And deep down, the right thing was done, Yeah,
Aiyuk's 26 of all those playmakers you mentioned, non-rookie variety. The guy that's most likely going to be there long-term that you would need to be part of this offense in 2026 and beyond is Brandon Aiyuk. And so in the end, they got that done. And he's probably going to be the long-term number 1 wide receiver, at least in the 49ers offense for young Brock Purdy, who's going to be up. And we'll see how that dance goes next offseason with his contract negotiation. Obviously, Debo is going to be a huge part of it. And if you're looking for a DFS play in week 1, it's still probably Debo, because I don't know if Aiyuk's going to play 100% of the snaps. Christian McCaffrey, do they slow play him to start the season? It's going to be a good one on Monday night, by the way, with the New York Jets. And I always said, look, Jets don't get to have Hassan Reddick, who, by the way, is the guy that knocked out Brock Purdy in the NFC Championship game a couple of years ago. So Jets don't get Hassan Reddick if the 49ers don't have Trent Williams back. Well, the Niners got Trent Williams back. So, okay, Jets, go ahead, do your thing and bring in Hassan Reddick. And let's have the best Monday nighter we can to kick off this season.
Love it. Love it. It's great that we're talking matchups and who's going to block Reddick, and that kind of stuff is great.
That's it. We're here now. It's 2024 NFL football season time. Week 1 nearly upon us. So, Matt, let's make our predictions.
All right.
Who's going to win the divisions? Who's going to be the playoff teams in 2024? And who's going to hoist the Lombardi after Super Bowl 59 next? Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And we're going to be talking over-unders for NFL teams. Feel better about that Niners over-under at 11.5, one of the highest over-unders in the NFL. And you can bet on all the over-unders for your favorite teams, who's going to win the next Super Bowl, MVP, Rookies of the Year, offensive and defensive, tons of NFL props and weekly lines, of course, and any other sport you want to bet on. You can find that at FanDuel, and a little something different for you guys to start this NFL season now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. All you got to do is go to FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook. That is FanDuel.com. Here we go. Let's do this. Let's talk division winners. And since we already brought up the 49ers, let's close the book there. And looking at those FanDuel win totals, I mean, it's a laugher of a division. 11.5 for the Niners. It's only 8.5 for each of the next two teams in both the Rams and the Seahawks. 8.5. That's 3 games. That's a huge delta from the top team to the second team in a division. You got to project the 49ers. Vibes are much better now. And even the Ricky Pearsall story could be sort of a galvanizing thing for this team, where vibes were definitely off for the 49ers. Didn't like the way things felt just 1 week ago, Matt, but now into practice week for week 1, maybe things, for a few players are not quite up to midseason form to start the year, but it's hard really to predict anybody else in the NFC West than the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, and they're my pick as well. And I do think Arizona's doing some good things. I'm a little more excited about Seattle. Frankly, I'm worried about the Rams defense, but McVay, Kupp, Stafford, etc. are always going to be hard to play against. And there's a familiarity factor with these teams now too. Obviously, Rams, Niners. And it could be a little slow going early on. Like I might take the Jets plus the points or whatever when I start digging into that game. Also, I do believe in Super Bowl hangovers to a degree, but I am definitely taking the Niners to win the West.
Let's go to let's stick in the NFC and finish those divisions then. How about NFC North? Where are you at here? This is going to be a hotly contested division.
Yeah,
I can go a number of directions with this. Defending champs, Detroit Lions?
I would pick the Packers to win most divisions. I'm that high on them. But as you'll see as these predictions go along, I think the Lions are just in a really good spot right now. All those dome games, a lot of players in their prime, a lot of new contracts, a lot of good feelings in the building. I like what they've done on defense. So, yes, sign me up for the Lions.
I think it's so tight between Green Bay and Detroit. It was last year. Both playoff teams. I expect them to both be playoff teams again. I think there's more growth to be had for the Packers. And I'm looking specifically at Jeff Hafley, the new defensive coordinator. Is that a massive gain for them? If it is, I like Green Bay. So I'm going to go Green Bay over Detroit in a hotly contested division.
I do expect an improved defense and maybe a greatly improved defense.
NFC South, another interesting division, hotly contested for different reasons. You would pick probably the second place team in a lot of divisions, maybe to be the first place division in the NFC South, but maybe an improving division, not quite as bad as last year, which is a good thing, right? We're gonna have we might have multiple over 500 teams here this year.
Maybe. I still think it's 8th of the divisions, and I could see Tampa taking a slight step back. Aaron Schatz had some good points about the Saints, that they're so average that makes them #1 in this division. But I'm going with Atlanta. I assume Kirk Cousins is going to be practicing and everyone's going to be full go. That's a really stacked offense with a good line. And I think the defense can hang on, especially with Judon and Simmons.
So the Falcons didn't play anybody in the preseason, and apparently there's been some construction going on, which is why we haven't gotten really much reports about camp either. They haven't had fans in there at training camp. So there's not a lot of highlight videos of anything going on from the Atlanta Falcons. So there's kind of some unknown, and they won the offseason, but new coaching staff, some changes there.
A lot of changes.
I don't know what to expect, but on paper, they look like the best team, and they won the offseason. So I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons, but They're an interesting team that I'm going to be tuning in for week 1 and watching closely because I don't know exactly what to expect. But in this division, I still like them most, and I do disagree with Aaron Schatz. If you didn't listen to that episode, he loves the New Orleans Saints in the South. I just can't quite get on board.
Right, me neither. So my Steelers are going to Atlanta, and it's been hard to. I assume Cousins is playing. I mean, like we'll get that stuff soon, but it has been quiet out of Atlanta.
Aaron Schatz, by the way, DVOA statistic godfather, one of the godfathers of analytics for the football, pro football game. And you can find that episode from last week. Really good one on Friday. He also is not high on the Philadelphia Eagles in the East. Who do you like coming out of the East in the NFC, Matt?
Yeah, and I disagree with Aaron on that one too. And his track record's great. I urge everyone to go check that out because he makes some really good points that scare you about the Eagles, that even when they were, quote, on top of the league, maybe that was a little bit more good fortune than we realized too. I just think they have a really good roster and 2 good lines and, a quality quarterback. I don't think Washington or Giants are even competitive this year. And I think Dallas is due to take a little step back.
I'm going to go Dallas. I don't know if they're worse. They just definitely didn't get any better. But is their good enough? I still like their defense. I still think they're, as long as there's not a huge injury to Dak or to, CD Lamb, I think they're in pretty good shape there. So I'm going to go Dallas Cowboys just because of how bad it looked in Philly. But, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator in Philadelphia, and they still got a lot of great on the roster. I mean, could a center really mean that much, losing Jason Kelce? It could. It was really interesting listening to Jalen Hurts talk about, they didn't even let me kind of do any of the stuff with protections. It was just all Kelce, like, don't worry about it. So now he's kind of crash course in some things. So there might be growing pains there with that. But so many playmakers now on that roster. And maybe fewer push and more Goddard in the red zone. Would that be such a bad thing? I don't think that's a problem either. So I'm kind of talking myself into Philly, but I'm gonna stay. I had Dallas, so I'm gonna leave it there. So I'm gonna go Cowboys in the East.
Real quick, if Aaron was right about the Eagles, which he very well could be, Dallas might go 6-0 in that division. Because Washington and the Giants were his worst 2 teams projected wise. They could kind of win by default if Philly is bad. I just don't think they will be.
Yeah, Philly, Dallas, Detroit, Green Bay. Those are going to be primetime matchups, no doubt, even if they're not in primetime. And I think they do have some primetime matchups amongst those. All right. Let's go division winners in the AFC, going back to the West. And the West seems to
do wild cards real quick.
Oh, yeah. Let's finish NFC wild cards. Yeah,
okay.
Let's do that.
In order, I have Green Bay, Dallas still. And I know everyone's going to pick the Rams, but I'm going to say Tampa. They invested in Evans and Winfield and Baker and, kind of running it back. I think they can sneak in the weaker conference.
Yeah, and I've got the same. So I had Detroit and Philly, and you had those as winners. So, those same, 6 teams, right?
Yeah.
And then the 7th team is where it's going to be fun. I don't know if I would put my money down on this, but I'm going to go dark horse and say that it's actually the North that gets 3 teams in.
I thought about
Chicago Bears finally got it right at quarterback. And I'm going to go Chicago as my dark horse wild card team. That's what my heart tells me in this one. My brain tells me it's probably going to be either the Rams or the Seahawks.
I can see that. I had a hunch you were going to pick the Bears.
The Seahawks are a really interesting team because I talked with Eric Crocker, my co-host on Locked On 49ers, and we said, who's the biggest threat in the West? And Croc was like, well, of course it's Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford.
Sure.
And I look at the Seahawks. I'm like, man, I like the Seahawks roster top to bottom more.
Yeah.
They have a higher ceiling floor that I'm not sure what they're going to, so kind of what I said about the Atlanta Falcons. Similarly, the Seattle Seahawks with new coaching staff, young coaches, they're going to go from maybe running the fewest plays in the league to running the most plays in the league, 3 wide all the time. We're going to see a lot of Jackson Smith and Jigba on the field. I don't know what to expect. Is it going to go awesome? Are they going to have a lot of growing pains with the new staff? They've got a stout defense. They bring over a really smart defensive-minded coach from the Baltimore Ravens. Can they play that style of ball? They could be really good. So that's kind of the interesting team to me is the Seattle Seahawks. They could be a team that's just like awesome immediately, or does it take a while? Are they more of a team that kind of gets going in the second half?
You kind of touched on this. I mean, what if Murphy is the defensive rookie of the year and the defense all of a sudden kind of goes from soft and cheesy to aggressive, nasty Ravens coming at all angles and, really utilizing their talent? That might be a 10-win team.
And Byron Murphy could be defensive rookie of the year. He looks like a stud. And you already have Leonard Williams there, some size up front. Do they get enough outside pass rush? I don't know. But, you got a young superstar in the secondary and Devin Witherspoon.
They're interesting.
Tariq Woolen, does he make a comeback this season? I don't know. There's a lot to work with there, and maybe one of the most underrated players and quarterbacks in the NFL. And Geno Smith, he's played really good ball consistently since all of a sudden kind of came out of nowhere from backup to the guy after Russell Wilson.
I hear
you. AFC next. We will pick division winners, and we will pick the wild cards. Who's going to be the playoff teams in the Super Bowl winner when it's all said and done next? This episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Game Time and the Game Time app. Whether you are getting NFL football tickets, Major League Baseball tickets, when NBA and NHL games start up, find those tickets at Game Time. Concerts, comedy shows, whatever it is near you, Game Time is the place for not only tickets, but those last-minute tickets. Did you wait on buying those Week 1 NFL tickets? Well, wait till game day. You can find some really good deals. Save up to 60% on the Game Time app. And Game Time now has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You see the views from your seat before you buy, and all-in pricing. Toggle on that feature with no surprise fees at checkout. My favorite feature at Game Time. And take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Today's episode is also brought to you by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Kids are always learning and growing, and it's blown me away as a father seeing how much my kid grows every day. Wakes up and he came up with something new. I don't even know where he got it, but
BP, my son turned 18 today.
Oh my
God, 6'5". Yeah. How about it?
Williamson family. You kicking him out the door? You gonna let him hang out for a while?
A little bit. We'll see. Better shape up.
But the curiosity, and I'm sure it blows your mind to see how your son turning 18, becoming an adult, how much curiosity, how much growth is there. But as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity. What's something maybe you would like to learn? Gardening, a new language, maybe how to finally beat your best friend in bowling or golf, or get better at fantasy football, beat Williamson in that dynasty league, whatever it is that you're trying to get better at. Keep that curiosity, and therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder, because your back to school era can come at any age. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire. You get matched to a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. Okay, we are on to the AFC, Matt. Who wins the AFC West? And it is easy as the NFC West is.
This is the easiest one. I mean, let's say Mahomes misses a month and Wentz starts. I'm still taking the Chiefs. What if he misses 2 months? Then I'm up in the air. But this is the easiest slam dunk going. Kansas City runs away with the division and might be resting starters at the end of the year.
Is Wentz, how much worse of a starter is Carson Wentz than the Raiders or Broncos opening day starters?
It's a great question. I think he's a wild card. I finally got off the Wentz bandwagon, but that ship finally sailed. But I don't think he works and plays well with others and doesn't seem to improve. But there's talent there. They'd be okay with him.
You haven't jumped off the Jameis Winston bandwagon yet, have
Nah, I'm still hanging on with fingertips, and
you? Good.
that's starting to become a vote against Watson as much as a vote on Winston.
Yeah. And obviously, Denver Broncos are starting a rookie quarterback, and we've been accused in the YouTube comments, Matt, and that we're not giving the Broncos enough credit about how good they're going to be. And look, there's just a lot to do there. And Sean Payton might be a great coach, and maybe they outperform expectations for us. But still, rookie quarterback, what do you expect? Is it going to look like C.J. Stroud in the Houston Texans last year? I have my doubts, even if it turns out better than we think for them with a rookie quarterback who, plays as much college football as anybody ever. So could be more ready to go than most rookie quarterbacks. Is the ceiling there like C.J. Stroud? I don't know. We'll find out. But I mean, Gardner Minshew led Las Vegas Raiders, again, have holes on the roster. Maybe their coach is going to continue to just win more games because of how well he coaches his football team, like we saw at the end of last year. So maybe they're scrappy teams and better than expected, but they're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think so. And again, roster wise, I do believe in Jim Harbaugh as a coach, but it's impossible to pick another team without getting like odds in your favor,
right.
Other than the Kansas City Chiefs.
I mean, this is one of the few divisions where I would take the Chiefs and give you the field. Like in the NFC West, that's a tough call for me. In the AFC South, that we're about to talk to you about, that's a tough call for me.
I've got the Texans in the South. I'm all in on the Texans.
I do too.
I love the Texans. I know the plexiglass principle that you like to talk about, but man, I think they're better than they were. And even if some things step back, I think they're well coached. I think they're going to be better on defense, which is going to be the big factor for them. Offensive line better. And so life is going to be even easier than it was for rookie C.J. Stroud, and you would expect he's better in year 2 as well.
I do think the division's trending the right way and a lot of exciting young quarterbacks, but I still have the most faith in Stroud, and that includes Lawrence and support, especially when supporting cast, and hopefully the O-line stays healthier and all those good things. So, yeah, I'm hanging with the Texans.
Who do you like in the North? We've got this obviously division you cover the closest, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens. Such a fun division. Who do you like this year?
I thought the Ravens were the best team in football in the regular season last year, but they've lost a lot. O-line, coaches, Patrick Queen, Clowney, a lot of guys they got a lot of production from. I'd like Joe Burrow to have a monster season, but we probably shouldn't even mention it in the first segment. It'd be nice if Jamar Chase was with the team.
He's still holding in, right? This is.
I don't think he practiced last we saw.
Yeah, he was like supposed to return to practice, then walked on the field, but he's still around. Is he going to show up at practice to hit the game week like everybody else has in the NFL, except for Hassan Reddick? We'll find out.
Probably.
There's just one thing holding me back from all these teams, like because the Steelers got better at quarterback. I still don't love the quarterback play, but they were. I mean, if you just give them instead of atrocious quarterback play and offensive coordinator to middle of the league offensive coordinator and quarterback play, I mean, that's a huge upgrade for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't like what's going on at quarterback necessarily in Cleveland. Love their defense, though. Don't love Nick Chubb not being there for the whole year. Cincinnati Bengals, you mentioned Joe Burrow being back. I expect them to be a much better football team. Got to get Jamar Chase on the field, though. And the Baltimore Ravens lost some things, but I still think they're the best team. And I trust in Harbaugh to get it right. And we've made the right decisions for who's going to replace lost coaches. And I'm going to go with the reigning MVP. And I'm going to pick the Baltimore Ravens just because there's enough questions elsewhere that it doesn't worry me what Baltimore has lost.
They're going to be my top wildcard team, and I totally understand. And betting against them is usually a bad idea.
Right. Yeah. If you bet on them for the last decade, you are winning.
You have money.
Yes. AFC East, Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, New England Patriots, New York Jets. Man.
All right, here's my prediction in the East, and I'm going to kind of tell a little story. Patriots don't matter. The Bills have a lot of changes. And remember last year, like halfway, 3/4 of the way through the season, they were a mathematical long shot to even make the playoffs at that point. Like they needed a lot of things to go their way, and it did. I think this year is going to be similar, where Miami comes out a ball of fire, scoring 60 points a game, and then it gets cold, and then it gets wet, and things start to look a little less. And then the Jets look great, maybe even beat your Niners in week one, but then age starts to set in, and Tyron Smith's missing the rest of the year, and boy, where's that other receiver? And before you know it, the Bills are back winning the division.
Wow. Okay. Buffalo Bills win the East for Matt Williamson. I've got the New York Jets, and ask me again after week one, because I still want to see it with Aaron Rodgers, but I just think they're again, what I talked about with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but you add a Hall of Fame quarterback in there instead. Is he still that guy? He doesn't even have to be a Hall of Fame Aaron Rodgers anymore. I love Breece Hall. I love Garrett Wilson. And I truly believe in their defense, even without Hassan Reddick. But you add a Hassan Reddick, and that's just going to be that extra dynamic factor, and they'll get him in at some point. So New York Jets are back, and we'll talk about this again after week one, but I like where we're at with the New York Jets. And so with Aaron Rodgers, Jets win it for me. And I have the Miami Dolphins as one of my wild card teams in the AFC. I can't put any South or North teams in as wild card because there's just too many good teams in the North. And even then, I still can't figure out which two teams I want to join the Ravens from the North. So talk me into that one.
Yeah, I had the Ravens as my number one wild card, then Miami, because I do think they're a good team, and maybe they do lose a little steam in December, but they have enough in the bank. And then I'm probably wearing black and gold colored glasses, but I took the Steelers narrowly over Cleveland and Jacksonville. I think Lawrence is going to have a big year, but kind of for the reasons you mentioned. Like if we can get a Mike Sando tier 3 level quarterback play out of Russell Wilson and don't turn the ball over a ton, I think this team's noticeably better than it was last year. And I think the defense has a chance to be the best in the league.
I just need to see it from Jacksonville.
Me too. That's why I couldn't do it.
Okay, I'm going to leave Jacksonville where they are until they prove to me they're ready. And
that's what came down like Cleveland, Jacksonville's history versus Pittsburgh's. It's like, I'll bet on Tomlin.
Yeah.
Might not be pretty, but
who's got the better defense, Browns or Steelers?
Browns, but I think I thought the Browns and Ravens were the best two in the league last year, and they didn't lose anything. But the Steelers got better, and I think they could be both top 5.
I'm going Dolphins, Bengals, Browns. So that means I'm leaving out the Bills, I'm leaving out the Steelers, I'm leaving out the Jaguars in the playoff picture.
Okay. I'm glad you didn't go Chargers. I'm not even close to being there with the Chargers yet, especially the AFC.
I'm not there yet, but they're the team that if you told me they made the playoffs, I wouldn't be shocked. The 49ers.
I'm psyched to bet on them next year.
And a lot of people bring up the 49ers when Jim Harbaugh showed up because they couldn't figure things out. He showed up in 2011. They were instantly one of the best teams in the NFL. But I don't think they have Willis, Bowman. They got Navarro Bowman on the coaching staff, but not on the field. No Willis, Bowman, Alden Smith, Justin Smith. They have some pieces. They have those guys that's like, oh my God, okay. And they've got Hall of Famers on this team, and it's all coming together now. I do like their quarterback a lot better than Alex Smith in 2011. Mm-hmm. I will say that. And so I'm not going to put it past them, but I think they need one more offseason.
The Colts are the other team in the AFC I wouldn't count out. If things go well, Richardson plays 17, well-coached team, they could win 10.
It's just a lot more difficult to find that sleeper team. It's like in the NFC, it's like I can be cheeky and say, hey, Chicago Bears are going to make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It's really hard for me to do that with the Colts. I mean, Will Levis would have to be absolutely the real deal there. I do have the Colts with the defensive rookie of the year, though.
And me too. And I mean, you're leaving Josh Allen out in the AFC. I mean, that's
right.
It's a rough conference, right?
It's tough. It's going to be a competitive conference, and that's without any of the teams we expect to not be good to be good. And somebody's going to be good.
Someone's going to be
the Broncos, as we heard from some Broncos fans recently. It's the Chargers, and I'm never going to put it past Jim Harbaugh to have his teams ready to play. Antonio Pierce's teams were ready to play to end last year when he took over. You can make the argument for the Titans, Colts, Jaguars. You can make the argument for every single team except for basically the Patriots, I think, right now. And the Patriots could be okay on defense. And who knows, maybe they do the CJ Stroud thing, and it turns out that Drake May's amazing after a couple of weeks of Jacoby Brissett, too.
What makes it so fun, I know to wrap it up, is this time last year, I think the Texans over-under win total was at like 5. It can't be the Texans this year, but it was the Texans last year.
All right. Of those 14 playoff teams, who is your Super Bowl champion, man?
Kansas City over Detroit. I think the stars are aligning for the Lions, but I can't stress this enough. I think Mahomes is only getting better, and that is so frightening.
I like his weapons better this year.
Me too.
Lost some pieces on defense, and the defense kind of won it for him last year, I feel like. Does it swing back the other way? And it's like the defense is still really good, but then Mahomes goes and wins it for you, and that's scary. I can't go three-peat, though. There's something's going to happen. You can't win 3 in a row in the NFL. None of the dynasties have done it. It's not going to happen for the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers.
Could be their year.
I wouldn't have said this last week. I like it now. They get over the hump, and then they can go blow it up and rebuild and let some old guys retire or do whatever, because they've got the oldest team in the NFL. This is their window. They're going to go crazy for it. If they need a piece of the deadline, they're going to trade for it. They're restructuring Malik Collins and putting 3 years of void years into 2018 just to save a few $1 million like that. Yeah. They are going for it this year. It's the 49ers, and they all know it inside the building. Who
are they going to beat?
I could absolutely see a Super Bowl hangover for the 49ers.
Yeah.
You want them to beat the Chiefs, because that's the team they need to knock off, right? Is the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to say it's one of the Shanahan proteges. He either knocks off DeMeco Ryans or Mike McDaniel in the Super Bowl.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And so he doesn't have to get past the Chiefs, which is why the 49ers win it this time. But that's again, that's going with my heart. Kansas City, San Francisco are the best teams. Are they going to go back again? I don't know. Something wild's going to happen. So my dark horse team is for the Houston Texans to be scary good, and the Green Bay Packers. I think those are the teams where if you look like, okay, everything goes amazing upside there with the youthful teams, offense, defense, a lot of talent in a lot of places, and everything goes perfect. Dark horse, Houston, Green Bay, Super Bowl.
Certainly could happen. That would be fun.
What do you guys think? Who's your winners? Who are your Super Bowl winners? Let us know at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Drop a comment on YouTube. Subscribe while you're there. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen. Matt and I back tomorrow right here. Peacock and Williamson.